Thank you, random Zoom lady. All right, and I shall begin. Welcome, if you are watching this via the Rev website, tuning in from wherever. So good that you can be watching this tonight. We are talking about all things growing youth ministry, but not just specifically youth, but like how to go beyond our Friday night, looking at specifically moving just beyond a Friday night youth program, which is super important. And that is why we have a group of awesome people sharing about this today. Some of my dearest friends. We have pastors Jake and Holly, too good, from Lifehouse, now Sunday Co, planting a church. How are you guys?
Just Sunday, no Co.
Isn't there a Co on the?
No, we just couldn't get the Instagram handle.
Yeah, so we had to
I messaged the guy, but he doesn't want to give it to me.
That's so rude.
That you messaged him.
Damn.
That's amazing. Yeah, awesome. And also joined is Rachel Tripodi. I don't know what I have to refer to you as. I've picked a flip.
I mean, you've done both now.
Both now, so it doesn't matter.
It's done.
These names are going well, Nick.
Good.
And my name is Nick Stanford. And so myself and Rachel, we lead CFC Youth here at the Christian Family Centre in Adelaide. And I should say, Jake and Holly just finished up youth ministry at Lifehouse, leading house youth for 6 years. Five. One more, damn. But awesome. But we're gonna have a bit of fun whilst also chatting today. And also Pastor Jodie Elliott is here with us. She's
Jodie.
I'm watching along.
So so for us, I'm gonna just throw out we've got a bunch of questions we're gonna just go through. If we get through them all, great. If we get through two, because we just get chatty, then that's just gonna happen. So we're looking at all things moving on beyond just Friday nights. And so first question, Jake, is, and for all of us, what point did we, I guess, your youth, and for us, Rachel, our youth, break beyond just Friday nights? When was, I guess, what happened, what clicked, and when's the point that it just broke beyond just a Friday night? Rachel, who wants to go first? It's like an awkward prayer circle. Who wants to?
It is, pray? Isn't it? Popcorn
someone
prayer.
Pray, please.
I feel like, and you can obviously chime in, Nick, because same youth ministry, but I feel in the same, like we're in kind of the starting period of, because we've started a schools ministry called Project 147, which happened. We started that in the middle of this year, kind of out the back of youth camp that we did with Jake and Holly, with House Youth. And so I feel like we're in kind of finding our feet with breaking out of Friday night. So everything that I feel like I say tonight is from that kind of, we're still figuring it out, like in terms of schools ministry, like we have not perfected it. But I think for us, the point that we got to, which it's going to be very unique for every youth ministry, I think, but for us in terms of schools ministry, our youth camp this year was like really significant for our youth ministry, and we had particularly a lot of like leaders that we really value, like prophesying over our youth ministry and believing and praying into it, and championing us, and prophesying over where we were going to go. And there was a really significant moment with Pastor Sam Long, who was the guest speaker at our youth camp, where he prophesied over Nick and myself, and at least I see that as like a pretty significant moment in terms of like we were stepping over the line of like something has to change. We can't just keep doing the same thing and expecting God to move or something crazy to happen. Like if we want to see fruit, we actually have to step out in faith and do something new. And like, yeah. So that's kind of a key moment that I see as like the point. What would you say, Nick?
Yeah, I like that one there is particularly like, yeah, like you nailed it there. Like it actually took us to go, we need to do something like crazy out of faith that like is almost a bit impossible. And so Project 147 is all about equipping young people to go into schools, resourcing and equipping them to go into schools. But we had like this dream to go into 15, to have like a total of 15 schools within our region have an influence and impact with. And we're within 6 months, was it 6 or 7 schools we're in?
I think, yeah, 6 or 7.
6 or 7, and for us at the time, before we started, we were in 1. And it was just like the thought of trying to go to dare and dream that big was terrifying. And so I think that was, but having the people in support, but it also was a shift as well, not just from a vision and for young people to get on board, but also for our team. And something that we started massive throughout this whole year is we started nailing into leaders that your job as a youth leader is not about Friday night. And we've reinforcing this the entire year. And I've been saying the same thing to leaders almost every time we meet. Your role as a youth leader is not a Friday night role. It's a 24/7. When you sign up to be a youth leader, when you sign up to be in youth ministry and leading, or probably any practical leadership ministry, you're signing up as a 24/7 leader. So it means you should be expecting that a young person's going to call you during the week, and or that you should be hanging out with them during the week. It's not just a Friday night for 2 hours, but it's this role and influence you have over young people's life that's 24/7. And it certainly, yeah, like we're in the space of, we're now seeing the fruit of, because we've been growing insanely as a youth ministry. Like we started the year with 30 some nights, and now we're been up in our 50s. But it's just, yeah, but it's been like hard, like at times. It's not, but it's been super important to drill into as a part of our culture of who we are as a youth ministry, that we want to see, reaching schools, but also we're not just about Friday night, we're about discipling and reaching young people every day of the week. So yeah. Jake and Holly.
Yeah, dope. I think like for us, when we started so we took over in 2017, we started with small groups before we went into do our services again. So we've always done, in fact, we start everything, and like we often say that our small groups are the engine room of our youth, because let's say our Friday nights are to gather. We've always said this, right? So Friday nights are to gather, and then our small groups are to grow. So we're not necessarily going to talk about like all these hardcore different like intricate details of people's faith on the Friday night, because we want people to get saved, introduced to Jesus. But we can go there in a small group with a bunch of different leaders talking about, some issues, people's sin, grace, all of these like big questions about God. So we've kind of had them forever. But then Pastor Josh, like our lead pastor, says we do church in circles, not in rows. He always says this. He's like, our services are not the goal. When we get in a circle, when we hang out at someone's house, when we go down the river, because we're in Murray Bridge, like when we're in a car together, when we're going to the shops, we're just doing life together. And I know that sounds really cliche, but I know there's probably going to be some people watching this that have got questions about policy, like, oh, but I can't hang out with my young person, like, or I can't do this or that. Like, I think for us, like, we're not the policy experts by any stretch.
No.
But we've just made like accountability a big thing. We've never had a accusation, our church in its whole history. We've never had anything, because everything's like super transparent. And I think like one of the things that I would say for like going beyond a Friday is like just being really intentional with your team. Like what you're saying, Nick, like we don't just like set up temporary fences and praise and worship and stuff, but we like our main primary goal as youth pastors, as youth leaders, is to lead youth, is to pastor youth. And the most effective way is to open your door, like literally open your car door, open your house, whatever it is, and literally do life with them. I'll touch on that because everyone's got a different idea of small groups. And I'm just so thankful that we've had like this heart, because when COVID happened and we went solely online, it was just like not a normal thing because it was so whack. It is so whack, but like, I'm just so thankful that we had that culture in place, because now everything's had to be like changed, and we're in small groups. We've got restrictions. We've got this, and the message of like doing life with people never changes. Yeah, so it's a big thing. Big thing.
Yeah, that's good. Do you want to touch on anything, Holly?
That's it. That's good. Yeah.
That's
Hang
good.
on.
I guess the kind of next question, which also, I guess, somewhat answers ready. So how do you know when you're ready, and how did the process start? I think it's just, I think I would just say, rather than knowing when it's ready, I think it's just kind of realizing it's a necessity, is that you can't, if you want young people to grow, and you want your youth ministry to grow, not just in numerically, but spiritually and in their faith, you can't be just doing a Friday night, because 2 hours out of like all the hours in a week, that's like that much. And so if it's only Friday night, then you're just not gonna grow even just one person. Like 2 hours with one person a week is not enough to be doing stuff, especially for a young person, considering there's voices everywhere in their life. So I would say you're probably never ready to move beyond to, like, it's hard, it's challenging, but it's really just a necessity that I've got to choose to prioritize, even when it is hard. So like Jake said, you might be hard to I'm thinking, it's hard to meet with young people because of policies and stuff. I'd rather see that as an opportunity. It's like, okay, yep, I want to be transparent. I want to be as safe above the board as possible, but I'm going to do what I can. So I'm going to get another leader. We're going to hang out with a group of young people. We're going to keep it all safe. And I guess the starting is with you as the youth pastor listening, or you as the youth leader. It's just going, okay, I'm just going to start. If it's particularly when it comes to discipleship of teenagers, we can talk about schools in a minute, but when it comes to just that discipleship of teenagers, I guess it's the necessity.
Yeah. I would say, like, I was going to say the same thing, that I don't think you're really ever ready. It's never going to be a convenient thing. Like, I think if it's convenient, then you're not going to see lives change as much as you would if it was you're actually sacrificing something. And something that I've seen in our leaders is, even though maybe, like, looking on the outside, maybe our team wasn't ready for what we were putting on them, I've seen in our leaders, like, them taking that and taking like that responsibility really seriously. And over the months that as we've continued to, like, just repeat that vision over and over and over and over again, even if we're not seeing it yet, repeating it over and over again, like, you just see our leaders just starting to grab onto it and just finding any way that they can to hang out with their young person. Like, one of our leaders is like doing, like, what's the word, like mentoring, or like helping him with his homework, like he's getting paid to help him with his
tutoring.
homework. Tutoring, that's the one. Yeah, he just somehow got a tutoring gig with one of his young people. Another one of our leaders went on a walk with their young person and their mum, which I'm just like, that's the best. I've never done that personally. But just like finding ways, like not using that as an excuse, like the policy thing, because it doesn't need to be an excuse. Like, you can always find a way to hang out with your young person, even if it's weird, even if you have to think outside the box. And so, yeah, I think even if our leaders weren't necessarily ready, like, they're doing it now, and they've caught on to it now. So, yeah.
Very cool. The only thing I would add, I think you guys have basically covered it, so I won't add anything else really, apart from our mission is also the same as the Great Commission, and our mission is to make disciples. So it's what we're ready.
That's
what we to do, you know?
Yeah, boy.
Yeah.
It's less of it. Yeah, it's less of our It's less of our readiness and more of it's our mandate, but I can't really say mandate, can I? Praise God. Practically, what do people need, team and resource wise, to get into schools and outside of Friday? So we've talked a lot about starting like with our discipleship outside of Friday nights. Like that's just important. That's our jobs as youth pastors and youth leaders. Like that's something we're going to be doing. But in terms of hitting schools, and this is going to be interesting because they're similar but very different. Murray Bridge has your high schools are certainly a lot different than what our high schools and primary schools are like. So in terms of starting point of getting into schools and getting involved with schools, where's the youth pastor, the youth leader that's really keen, or the young person that's really keen? Pastor Jake, where's the starting point? What do I need? What's the resources? What do I need to be involved in schools?
Yeah, so I would say it's a little bit different now because of COVID and everything. Like just speaking in SA, I don't know wherever you're watching. I know in Victoria it's just cooked. Like you can't pretty much do anything. So if you're watching from Victoria, there's actually a dope resource that I can give you link to Schools Revolution as well. Like it's pretty cool, but which I might actually touch on a little bit because that's pretty handy to know. But I think for us, we had at one time we had 6 school ministries happening at one time, none of which are happening anymore. Literally like right before the pandemic and all that. I'm going to stop talking about that because I hate that even gets brought up. But that did actually change a lot. Now there's none running at all. But how we got in is we said to the student or the youth leader or whatever, like I think we even had, 10 leaders in schools, like as teachers or SSOs or whatever, like ridiculous. So like the hand of God was on it. But we were like, okay, go to the student services office or the principal even, and just say, hey, like we're here to bless the school. What can we do? Can we offer, like what Rachel was saying, tutoring or a walk with someone's mum or like whatever. But like, how can we as a church, like we're from Lifehouse, we're from whatever, how can we help the school? How can we partner with the school? Because we see a need in this area. We see that suicide in young people is high. We see that depression, we see that this. How can we help partner with you guys to help this? Yeah. And then what I would suggest is wait for them to give a boundary as to what can happen. Like I know for us, we saw students literally just like, can we have one classroom once a week, get in food from our church, and that's it, just at lunchtime. Have one teacher there, and then bam, that's it. And then everything was kind of like put in place by the teachers or the principal. Here's what you're allowed to do. Here's what you're not allowed to do. And then I just strongly encourage anybody watching to follow those boundaries very well, because you're not only there to actually support the school, to support the students, but you're also there representing your church. And if you go in there, and I know a bunch of guys that have gone into a school, the principal said, let's not do this, and they do exactly that. And it literally like ruins any relationship or people's perspective of the church. So I would say go to whoever you need to go to, offer some support, some partnership, and then put in like an offer of what you're willing to do, and then just follow their boundaries. That's what I would say. Oh, but then with the resource for people that are like under a hardcore, like persecution almost, like with your speech or whatever, there is like some awesome stuff to get involved with. Like I know that last year there was the Locker Love stuff that went around in SA that's gone to like Queensland and stuff, where you can legitimately just like create packs as a youth ministry, and then you do it together as like a leadership team or students, give them out on the Friday night of maybe like a letter of encouragement, or like, especially like with exams that just came around, that would have been a perfect time. Or like put some Red Bulls in a pack, or put some like Mentos or like some treats or whatever with like a nice encouraging letter, drop them into people's lockers, and you're allowed to do that everywhere. And I think like stuff like that, like just coming out with really creative, like innovative ways that aren't breaking any laws, but are also like, we're showing love to our fellow students, we're blessing them, we're really believing the best. So I would definitely check that resource out. And I'd also be, like getting in touch with anyone in your church that works at a school or whatever, because like they are so handy to have, because they'll be able to tell you like what the go is pretty much.
Yeah, using the people you've got is good.
Yeah.
Because often that is a church community. There's so many people everywhere in the community. You just utilize what you've got.
Surely.
Good.
Ray Charles.
I couldn't unmute myself.
Discovering.
I think, yeah, I think what you guys have said is great. Yeah, I don't even know if I have anything to add on that.
I agree, and that it's so important on the like come to serve and just be like take whatever opportunities you can, like just because I like stories. Like years ago when me and Holly were interning, that's all we did as interns is we went and did breakfast clubs. We just had a local primary school where we went in, and like what started out as just like the kids that need a breakfast club, then we had every kid and their mother was coming out to hang with us because we were playing music, having fun, and just showing that we just loved them and just having a great time. We had a bunch of guys that ended up coming from youth, and what actually it grew on from there was after Holly moved to Murray Bridge, myself and another youth leader, we were there, and then like as we're just there week in, week out, just serving, loving, no agenda, just like they want us to give food, we're just done. We'll go the extra, like, hey, can we cook you pancakes one week? Sure, go nuts, do all these extra things. Then they just tap us on the shoulders like, hey, kids love you. Do you want to come in and mentor these kids? And we're like, sure, we'll come in an extra day, extra time during the week. And we were in for like an hour every other week. And then it grew and grew to be on the point that myself and this other youth leader, we had such a good relationship and rapport with the school that we would just walk in to the school kind of whenever we wanted to, just to hang out. The teachers loved us. We would go into the classes, hanging out with kids. We, like Jake said, we would follow all the, like we wouldn't go over above what we'd been told to do, but we just had built this relationship and rapport over the years where even now, even though I don't get to do that as much now, I was at the school just the other week just a couple of days ago doing a barbecue for them. They're talking with the teachers and this relationship. They love our church because of the history, because of what's been built. And like Jake said, Jake&Holly said, use the people in your church. We're just doing a thing called Hampers for Hope. And I know a lot of churches do something like that, putting together hampers for churches and for families in need that don't have anything for Christmas time. So like we have our chaplains or teachers that have like a list of people who, like, these families, they'll have nothing for Christmas. And so we go to church, all right, let's just put a whole bunch of good food together, good things, and just bless a family. And there's been like stories of people that just go, we wouldn't have had Christmas without hampers. And those are just like Jake said, being creative with what you've got, no matter where you are. What were some of the challenges of going beyond Friday night and navigating them? And so I guess this comes on with, I guess, going into schools, but also with the discipling throughout the week. We've touched on, obviously, with policies, and, thinking like, how do I, because you can't be one-on-one with a young person and things like that. But how, what are some of the challenges that have arisen that you've known, or what challenges do you know of that you've worked around from that?
Just two quick ones would be, I'd make sure that your team is like healthy enough to, like, I'm not saying they're going to be perfect, but a couple of years ago when we were doing small groups, we had like one of our youth leaders tell our young people that like God's a woman and like all this like rubbish. And I didn't realize until like 2 weeks after, I'm like, yikes, like that's not good. How many other youth leaders are saying all this other stuff? So then we like had to really rope that in and just be like, okay, let's make sure that we are not spitting some false facts here. Let's actually like figure out what we're doing. So I would say make sure your team is ready before you throw them in the deep end. Because we've even had like car rides where a youth leader's been like, hey, like this a young girl, like a 12-year-old girl, has just been drawing these demons that she sees in her room. And then we're like, well, she's not equipped to deal with that. Like, let's actually like figure this out. So I think like, instead of just like, oh, let's just run small groups, hope for the best. Like, they are literally so crucial. I would make sure that your team is very healthy, that everyone's on the same page, and there's a lot of feedback. Like, cannot stress that enough. Feedback's so amazing. If you're not open to feedback from your team, you need to get over yourself, because I think like for us, we made this thing on a Monday where the first thing we would do is we'd shout out the wins, like, awesome win, this many salvations, this was a win, that was a win. But we also go through improvements. Where did we go wrong? Where can we do better? Rah, rah, rah. And then always with the small group time, that has to be evaluated, because if young people aren't enjoying it, or if there are being conversations that are happening that are not biblically true, we are literally adding damage to people's relationship with God. Young people, their minds are so malleable that if we have young people who are leaders, or some young adults that are leaders that aren't scripturally based, and they're just spurting this nonsense, then it can actually like damage people's idea of God. I'll say that. And then the second one would be when we were trying to get a bit more creative, we did a schools tour. So we couldn't physically get into schools because the teachers didn't want that at the time. But we said, we'll bring our youth program to the school gym on a Friday night. So we'll do the bumping, we'll do everything. And then one of the mistakes that we made is by pushing those boundaries, and they said no smoke machine. We brought in a smoke machine. The fire, like the crew got called, like all these like firefighters rocked up, like, which is just funny. It's funny but it's also like just stressing the point of respecting the boundaries that the school puts in place. So have a healthy team, invite feedback, and make sure you don't break any boundaries.
Can I ask a question with the healthy team thing? What kind of like practical things do you do to keep a check on the health of your leaders, aside from like the meeting, but actually like pouring into them theology and teaching?
So we got a weekly meeting every single Monday night. If you're a youth leader, you're expected to be at that. And if you can't come to that, you're not going to be a youth leader. Obviously, if you've got a heart and a passion for young people, but you're a doctor or something, even then you have to be at these meetings. Like, we've had doctors, we've had this, we've had every single pretty much like occupation ever. Like, you have to, and if not, then there's other ministries for you, but that is a requirement. And then at that, we've got like a message, like a team message about like culture, or then like a scripture one, or like whatever. And it really goes into depth of that. But then once a term, I would ask like a practical thing, like, how do we go through altar calls? How do we pray for young people? What are some other ones that we did? Speaking in tongues, what's to do with that?
Yes. Yeah,
like, we did like all these big things, and we realized how much our team like just doesn't know, and they just rely on like us.
Yeah, or core leaders to know all of that stuff. They would kind of rely on that and not step out because they didn't know how to do it themselves.
And I'm almost convinced that every youth pastor or leader watching this, there's team that are like coasting with their knowledge because of you. Like, you're like the knowledge savior. Like, they will just follow you. But then when you step out of a Friday night, it's actually on them. Yeah. And then they're going to be like, oh no, I need to like pretend I know what I'm saying. God's a woman. It's okay. It's fine. And then it's like, well, yikes, we need to, if you're watching this and you think God's a woman, I'm sorry for offending you. But also, I think that the Monday night meetings is not for like us to just tick that off, but it's like, okay, our team is like that everything for our ministry. Without them, we wouldn't run. What do they need to know? What do they need to be better at? And how can we do it together? So I don't know if that.
And I think also one of those meetings we had, it was like a question and answer about how to be a good youth leader almost. So it was like, how do you lead an altar call if you're preaching, or how do you lead a young person through the sinner's prayer, like all of those kind of basic things. So I think we answered a few of them just at the start, and then we opened it up for questions. And so then people ask, well, how do I deal with this question, or this kind of situation, or this kind of dilemma pops up, like how do I deal with that? Yeah. So that was good, just like opening it up to see what they didn't know, and then they could kind of run the questions.
Would recommend.
That was good.
Yeah, that's good. And I think that's it. Yeah, don't assume that like even your team who are like youth leaders, like love God, love young people, that like they're gonna be on the same page with you are, because a lot of there'd be a lot of us that have had training, equipping, and so like I just do everything, particularly for us recently. We've just like getting any of our leaders in spaces and places, like obviously meetings, that's got to be non-negotiable, where we as youth pastors and leaders are inputting into our team, teaching, be practical. It doesn't always have to just be like do theological stuff, but also be practical. So yeah, that leaders know how to actually pray for a young person. Like there's nothing like when people someone just starts praying over a young person and they just have no idea what they're praying and they're just saying words, and it's like a young person probably came up to the altar call wanting prayer for their mums. Like you can actually just ask the question of, hey, what do you need prayer for, or stuff like that. And yeah, but like also just spaces where leaders can grow, like conferences, youth alive events, like they put on leadership days, or just spaces and places wherever there's good teaching, good people where they can learn from. Like I'm just gonna go nuts. And if you've got if you can do internships, you can do, there's CRC has a training, there's places in space like where people can learn and do stuff to grow in there in those areas. Rachel?
Yeah, I think what you've all said is great. I would just add, I think we need to have make sure that we have a good relationship with every person on our team, in the sense of knowing that they can come to us with their questions and with if they're struggling, because obviously as a youth leader, you're expected to be a 24/7 leader. We're expecting discipling of young people, and it's spiritually a heavy thing that we're expecting of these young people. I'm just going to ignore the fact that you guys are texting each other, but it's a spiritually heavy thing that we're putting on these youth leaders. And so I think making sure that they actually have, yes, the spaces, the big spaces where they can receive, but also that discipling, that one-on-one discipleship with the youth pastor or the youth coordinator or whatever your role is. And so that's something that Nick and I have had to be really firm with. There's only been a couple of times with leaders where they've resisted discipleship. And I think as soon as one leader resists discipleship, it throws the entire team off, the health of the team. It throws it off, and there isn't unity around it because you're not all on the same page. You're not all growing. You're not all diving in theologically and getting stretched and having accountability and being challenged and stuff. So I think making sure that you have that expectation that if you're signing up to be a youth leader, you're also signing up to be discipled by whoever it is that is discipling them. And that's how you keep the team healthy as well.
You see Rachel when she has a hard meeting with leaders, she's the meanest. She's so mean. She just rips them a new one.
I'm not that mean. They would say you're the meaner leader, 100%.
I know what you mean. I know what you're talking about. Awesome. I mean, I think we've shared a couple already, but any other stories, things, good examples, bad examples of, I guess, what's happened through moving beyond Fridays, looking at schools and discipleship. I think, yeah, right. For us, we've it's been a long journey of hammering in with leaders, being 24/7, but we're seeing that now, from the start of the year, where no one was catching up or doing anything with young people ever. And then now we're at the end of the year, in the week, we had probably all our leaders in the, I think it was a day in the day, 3 groups with our leaders. They all going, they went to Henley, they went to here, they went there. They were, you got Isaac, he's tutoring one of our boys. You got the older guys going to watch a movie. We got this on. And I think it's just been, it's done 2 things. It's one, it's just seeing our young people grow, and those core young people that are just feeling like they are a part of it. And they're the young people that are being discipled and looked after and being hung out with. They're the ones that are bringing their friends. They're the ones that they're saying, this is a family, this is a place I want to be. Of course, my friends need to be in this, come on a Friday night, because it's amazing. These people aren't just putting on Friday nights. They love me. They care for me. So of course I want to invite my friends. And another thought I had is just like, as well, even beyond Friday, like you've got to get your young people involved, not just like your youth ministry is a part of the church. You're not separate. And so seeing, like, I think a big push we've pushed this year as well is just seeing like young people involved in all our services, our Sunday services. And so and that's been the best thing. Like on Sunday now, we have about, I think over 50 to 60% of all young people that come up from a Friday are attending on a Sunday. And that wasn't the case a while ago, but just because sort of from serving in kids, production, kitchen, wherever, they're like just channeling, and there's spaces where they're just around other great people. I think of the lucky kids that get to hang around Ryan, our production guy, who's just one of the best people ever. And he just like, it's just another person, that great person that gets to invest in. And so I love it. And that's just been the best thing. And like all our other ministries have just benefited. And it's not just benefited our Friday night youth, and our youth ministry, but our church, because our young people aren't, it's not just a Friday night. It's just not youth that's separate, but it's like, we are a part of the church. We're under our pastors and leaders, and that we're not separate ministry. So that's my thing. That's not a story. Well, that's some stories, but yeah, stories about what God. Right, pick who's going to unmute first.
Can I ask a question on that for all of you? Say like in the last Zoom that we did, Ben Delaney was talking about like one of the core values of their youth ministry is that their young people are getting on board with the vision of the church, not just the youth ministry, which I guess is sort of like what you're talking about. How do you practically move someone, say from the youth group that's growing, that has people, like how do you move people from associating themselves as just part of the youth ministry to being part of the church, like coming along to the Sunday? Just like simple practical steps for how you do that.
I've got something, but Jake&Holly, do you have anything on that?
It's all like what we're talking about. Like if you're doing life with them, you should be mirroring that your life is better because you're with Jesus. And then the more that they are around you, it's like, okay, well, these guys go to Sunday, like that they rock up to church at like 9:30 or 10 a.m. or whatever time your church services are. Like this must be where I need to go. But then also like making it a priority. Like I think we're so blessed because our lead pastors, like some of the busiest people I know, like we literally live with them, and they rock up to youth every single week, and like because they prioritize young people. So I think like if you're in a house that is like it's reciprocal, sorry, like if it's like, yeah, like the Sunday morning is like the hub, but also so are young people, so are kids, so is the next generation. I think like it's super easy. But if you're in a context where that's a little bit difficult, I would say like we wouldn't even have these departments if it wasn't for that Sunday anyway, if it wasn't for our lead pastors, if it wasn't for the vision of that church, for that community. So I'd just say, if we have the privilege and honor of running a department in our church, we should constantly be wanting to feed that in, because once they leave year 12, and like we all know what happens, like if they're not solely locked in, that is the age where I think like there was a crazy scary statistic of like 64% of people like turn away from their faith, and like which is just like the most ridiculous thing ever, but it makes a lot of sense because youth is our hub, it's their community. But if we can enlarge that by talking about it, bringing them along, doing whatever we can, I think that's the goal. Yeah.
And I think removing any kind of practical obstacle from them getting to church on a Sunday, like I'll pick you up, like nah, don't even say anything, I'll be there at this time, I'll pay for your lunch, and having that kind of mentality in all of your leaders of like, we'll do whatever we need to do to get them there, kind of thing.
Yeah, and I'll even talk to you because I know some people might say, like, saying that's challenged me recently. Our pastor Sam did. Like, I know like sometimes think, oh, like young people, they come to our services. It's not the service isn't engaging. It's not fun. Young people, they have a short attention span, and I get it. And I would think we should all strive to make our services multi-generational. But something our Pastor Sam nailed into us recently was just we've got to adopt a no matter what attitude. So for us was and he sat me down because I was just complaining. I'm like, no young person wants to come to this or that, or it's trash, do better. And he just sat me down. It's cool, that's going to change. We're going to grow that. And I'm glad that you're on board with helping grow and do all that stuff. But that's going to take time. What are you doing to make sure that young people are coming on a Sunday or creating a space? And so he just smacked me. And so he said, you got to, not actually physically smacked me, but with his words. And just being and he's you need to make sure that, all right, even if the service, let's say it was a shambles, is there a space where young people can hang out afterwards and get together? They're not just going to rock up on a Sunday and leave. And so we started a thing, we call it Sunday Vibes, where after every fortnight, after every service, we have it's probably similar to a Friday night, an hour and a bit after the service, where young people bring their lunch to it's a youth zone. There's video games, there's a pool table, there's the handball. It's just a vibe space where leaders can come, they talk, it's just an hour just hanging out with young people, talk about what happened in the service, or what's going on. And it's an extra opportunity for young people to hang. But I'm creating a space where young people does. It's fun. And I surprised myself by how many young people came to. I thought it's going to take 100 years before young people rock up, but they're coming. And then that it was so I'm there's the preventing all barriers and excuses. And so I've got them food, get them chips and nuggets, get pizza, just whatever way I can get them there on on a Sunday. And even if it's they know, oh, come hang out on a Sunday afterwards, we're going to have a great time. I know even if something goes fail, I'm going to come and have a great time with great people that love me and care for me and going to invest into me. Then that's a win in my book. Don't worry, our services aren't terrible, but I'm just my frustrated personality.
But I think that's legit a reason why a lot of people don't push the Sunday service, is because they're worried that their youth won't enjoy it. It'll be boring. It's not practical to them. So it's good.
And I think if you're the person that's going to stand, and I used to be that person, I'll admit, but if you're going to be the person that stands off and is so anti and doesn't want to put it come up with ways to benefit and bless, then that's how you become separate from the church as a whole. It's just because it's just Friday night, youth don't care. But I'm going to do whatever I can to bring young people there. And it's been great. And like I said, now we've got young people, they're on the cameras, they're on lights, they're on sound, they're in the room. And, some of them even come down the front and give a little bit of an amen and hallelujah, which helps sometimes, and it's the little thing. And then it's just brightened up the service and made it a family service. So I could go on. All right. How to involve and encourage your young people to carry the vision and be a part of it. So I guess specifically schools ministry. I think that's a big one for young people. How it can be a big thing for a young person to be sharing their faith in their schools and with their friends and doing stuff. And so I guess, how do you get young people behind it, get people on board and get people not just excited and hyped, but actually saying, this is something I want to be a part of. I want to see my friends saved. I want to see my school changed.
I'll jump in quickly. I think I kind of touched on it before, but I dropped this young person home once, and this is just quotes of what the car ride was, so don't hurt me. But we're in the car, and he's oh no, I'm how'd you find youth tonight? And he's oh, it was alright. And then he wasn't really giving me anything. I'm hey man, do you want to go through Macca's? We get a frozen Coke. He's nah. And then get to his house, and he opened the door and was just literally about to get out. And I was just hey bro, what's going on? How come you're being cold with me? What's the deal? And he's bro, you just you're too nice to me, it's gay. Like that's what he said, right? And I was just like taken back. I was just like, what? No, I'm like doing this because like we love you, man. He's like that. Like he's just like that exact, like what you're saying is just like so weird. And then I was like, and I'm just like, all right, like whatever. And then he like went home, and then like I left, and I'm just like, I think that we have this like, or like for us anyway, we have this like weird perception of like young people where we are just like putting this on for them, and we're doing this like great service for them, and this is like the best thing ever for them, where we actually don't realize that they could have a different perception of what we are trying to achieve. So after that, there was this girl, Rihanna, that was like, that came to youth all the time, but she wasn't a Christian. I pray that she is now. But she just wasn't quite getting it, but she'd rock up every single week. And I'm like, okay, if that guy is thinking this is a bit weird, I want to go up to Rihanna and just be like, hey, Rihanna, sit down with us. Tell us 3 things you love about house youth, and tell us 3 things that you would want to change. Tell us 3 things that you don't enjoy. And she just started with all the things she didn't like. And she's like, I don't like this. I don't like that. This is weird. Why do we do this? This sucks. And I'm just like, okay. And then I was listening to her. I'm like, that actually makes a lot of sense. And after that, we changed things up because of what a 13-year-old girl that wasn't even a Christian was saying to me and a couple of our leaders in my office. The reason why I'm saying this is because where did we ever get this idea where we can't involve the young people? Like we're just supposed to lead them, but we can't actually lead someone somewhere where they don't want to go. And I think that to get young people on board with any vision is you got to give them ownership. Like you've actually got to give them an invitation to speak into it. I'm not saying go up to like anyone, but I think for her, like I knew she'd be honest with me. And I think we've just adopted this culture now where we're not better than anyone. We're just going to ask like, hey, how can we actually do this better so that you can feel like this is your home, so you can feel a part of it. So I would say include them, like just get their thoughts and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think part of that is like you need to own your own like feelings in response to the feedback that you're inevitably going to get from teenagers when you ask, like, honestly, what do you think? Or honestly, what could we do better? Or what do you hate about youth or whatever? And making sure that you're doing what you're doing with the right motives and the right intentions, that this is not your, like, the youth is not yours. Like it's something that's been gifted to you. It's been entrusted to you. It's about the kingdom. It's God's before it's yours. And so to not be so precious about stuff, I think when we put so much love and like we just like go hard and we're trying our best and we're doing everything we possibly can and we have the right heart, we can get so sensitive like to people's feedback or people's like criticisms. But I think there's just no time to be sensitive to that and be precious about that. And so I think, yeah, like remembering, like getting the bigger perspective and remembering why you're doing it and that it's actually for the young people. So what they think matters. And I think in terms of our youth ministry, like the more that we've involved young people, the better our youth ministry has been. Like I think back to like some of the stuff that we've done and I'm like, that was so cringe. Like, and I get why young people thought it was cringe and why they didn't want to bring their friends. And that's why we've seen more young people bringing their friends this year, is because we've actually had more young people in like planning meetings and in those spaces where leaders are together, where we're bouncing ideas back and forth because they're actually getting to be part of it rather than just be like a receiver of it, I guess. So yeah, everything that you guys said.
That's good. Yeah, I think simply if you think that, particularly if you want to get young people in schools, be involved with your Friday nights, like, and all those things. If you don't believe like a young person can pray for their friends, that like young people can pray, they can preach, they can do incredible things. Like what teenagers can do is actually amazing. And they need us to go, like, to open up opportunities for them, to ask them questions and not be, like Rachel said, don't be precious about if they give you feedback that's like, you know, if they say it's like, hey, that night sucked, like, why would I bring my friends to that? And you just go, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. Suck it up. Then what are we, we're just closing doors and not actually caring and valuing what our young people do. And they can do incredible, like they can do awesome stuff. Like I think you think of, like, I look at you, like for you guys at Health, like I've seen some of the things that your guys have ended up running at their schools. And I'm like, shit, like in the like I'm not going to say names, but this, I've seen stuff from afar and it's just like, it's incredible. Like what a teenager can do. And if I'm like, if even just that adopting the mindset, I'm like, you know what, young people actually have stuff to say and they can do good, like can be great leaders and great involved, and they don't have to wait till they're 18 and they have this official badge that says they're a leader. They now have a say, and it's like, yeah, it's good. If like, as much as I'm above like having 18-year-olds adults as like duty of care and policy, sure, but if your mindset is that young people can't lead and do stuff, good, then terrible. But awesome. Let's us. Oh, we might be able to get through these last couple of questions. How do you keep Fridays epic while investing into new avenues of ministry? I like the epic point. Thank you, Becca, for this question. How do you keep Fridays epic while investing into new avenues of ministry? So I guess keeping all like the things we're doing during the week really good, but making sure that our Friday nights are also really good. What's the balance? And yeah, if that makes sense.
Am I frozen?
No.
Everyone else is frozen to me. Okay, I'll just talk. Yeah, I think a big thing with this is like delegation and giving other leaders responsibility, like trusting them with something, even if it's your baby, even if you're so passionate about it, and you don't want it to flop, like training your leaders up to have bigger capacities and be able to carry things. If we want to do more, we're going to have to, like, it can't just be the youth coordinator or the youth pastor doing literally everything, doing all of the week-to-week stuff. Like, you have to start delegating, which is something that I think Holly and Jake do really well. Yeah, that would be my main thing.
Thank you. I would say I don't think that we necessarily are epic or anything like that, but this revelation that we had like a couple of years ago is just like, do what you're good at. Like, make sure that anytime you're creating anything, make sure that one of the first things that you address after the God factor is your context. Like, oh, I just saw a sick thing on Instagram, we're going to do this. Like, I would actually encourage you not to do that. What does your city need? What does your young people need? And do what you guys are good at. Because there's people, like, I've been to youth ministries in the Adelaide Hills that do stuff completely different to us, but their young people love it. Like, they are getting new people all the time. They are killing it. It's epic. But to me in Murray Bridge, if we did that, we would get eggs thrown at our house. Like, you know what I mean? So I just think, like, do what you're good at, stay in your lane, and don't think that because it works down the road, it's going to work for you guys.
I agree.
Thank you, Holly.
To make everyone feel better, an ongoing gag at our youth ministry that for whatever reason all our young people love is just this obsession that of a can of beans. It's just a thing. It's like, I think me and Rachel still got, like, I kind of love it and I lean into it as much.
I asked them straight out on the microphone the other day, like, is the beans dead? Because it's been a year-long thing, this beans meme. And I realized, Nick, it's literally like we're coming up to an anniversary of when that whole thing started. Because the way that we started this friggin' weird meme was we were having like a family Christmas, I think it was, like this time last year, like our final night of youth. And we had wrapped up all these random presents. It was just this stupid idea. We had a Christmas tree. We had all these presents wrapped up, but the presents weren't like, some of them were good presents, like a gift card or like good stuff that you'd want. And then some of them were just stupid things, like a can of beans. And we just threw them out. We had Patrick dress up as Santa. and he was just throwing out these stupid Christmas gifts to people, and someone got the beans and they unwrapped it and they just were like, the beans, and they were friggin' obsessed. And then literally from that point on, every like squad night, every like the clash, like when we do like a tribal wars thing, the beans has been the prize because it's all that they care about. We could give them like money, they wouldn't want it. They just want the beans. It's so weird.
It's weird. So that's why I think what Jake said is so good. It's just like what like I think if you did that in Murray Bridge, like the kids would just be like, what are you, young people are just gonna be like, that's just the weirdest thing.
But like I think sorry, I know I've already said my thing, but make moments with young people, like make memories, make moments, like celebrate them, do something bizarre that can only happen at your youth ministry. Like I think that is such a good example of you guys creating nothing. Like you did nothing, but it was the young people, it was the vibe, it was the atmosphere that then turned into a moment. And I think that is literally like
So special.
how to make something epic. Like honestly, like I think that is sick.
I've got the stick on the back of my laptop right now. We sold those for Project 147. So you know what? You might even, I mean, we didn't profit over that. It's going to schools, but you never know what could happen. There might be a merch line that's coming next year.
I think
there definitely is going to be a merch line, and Rachel's okay with that.
of beans.
Yeah, I'm literally going to make a shirt with like a can of beans on it. It's going to be great.
I was just gonna say, I think like that's a like knowing your context, like in terms of thinking epically, is a really freeing thing, because it can be very discouraging for people to see like what other people are doing and think, oh well, I could never do that. I don't have the resource, I don't have the team or whatever. But I think you can be epic like when you know your context and what your people need. So I think like I agree, what you said was really good and a good thing. Like it's freeing, it takes the pressure off, because you can be as fruitful just doing what God's called you to do in the context that he's given you to.
100%. All right. Well, let's finish up with a final advice to you think of your youth pastors, youth leaders there that they're hearing everything we're saying and thinking great, but I'm still a bit worried or still have some questions. What would be your advice to your youth pastor, youth leader, or even young person about going into schools, going beyond a Friday night? We've talked a lot, but I guess a final word of encouragement. They've made it through the almost hour-long podcast, and they just need a bit of gold from you. What's the advice? What's the last bit of gold? I waited. I saw the unmute button, and so I just.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
I'd say, like, just to summarize everything, I would say, equip young people. I would also say that Instagram is a liar. Like, don't believe all these other.
Yes, so true.
Like,
that's good.
You just stay in your lane. Like, do what God has called you to do in your city, in your capacity. Do that stuff. And the last thing that I would say that I think, like if I heard this when I was 17, when we took over youth, it would have literally changed, like probably like our whole youth ministry. But it's this: don't look at what you have now as an excuse as to why you can't step into what God's calling you to do in the future. So what I mean by this is, if you're watching this and you're like, oh, my young people are this. Well, thankfully, we're a Christian church. We're at CRC. We want people to come in and actually get saved. You're not going to just have those young people forever. Don't look at what you have now with your budget, with your young people, with anything. Look to the future. Look to where God is calling you to. That would be my little chickpeas.
Yeah.
Do you have anything?
And probably to like get around other youth pastors that are like around you. Like, don't feel like you need to do it. And other youth leaders, like, make friends with people. Don't feel like you're just isolated and this is my youth ministry and this is the only youth ministry. Like, there's so many out there. We're all doing the same thing. We've all got the same goal. Like, get around and encourage each other. I think we've had really encouraging conversations with other friends of ours that are pastors and leaders, and I think that's something that really helps to spur you on and to keep the life of a youth pastor longer than whatever it is, like 1.5 years or whatever, which is just so sad. Like, to stretch that out means like having a community of people that get what you're doing and are doing the same thing, and you can encourage each other and give each other ideas, pray for one another. and actually pray, and not just be like, I'll pray for you,
Oh,
but like
classic.
actually pray. Like when we've got friends that will say that and we know they really mean that,
Yeah.
that's like really special.
Yeah.
I think that's really important too.
And then sorry, the last thing,
Sorry.
if you've skipped everything just to this moment and you're like, oh, we need to do school ministry stuff, but like the only Christian person in our youth is like this weirdo, like super nerd. Like I would actually say, like, I don't like just force people into school ministry that aren't ready for it. And that also you don't want to just replicate a youth group in a school.
Mhm.
So if that's all that you've got right now, I would wait for the right person to come along, because God will bring them.
Yeah, that's true.
And I would not just force your hand or crowbar into that just yet. I would wait until you have people ready to go that you know that God's going to use in a mighty way. That's what I would say. God can use everyone, 100%, but you've also got to think a little bit strategically when it comes to placing young people in schools. Thank
That's
you.
great. My thing is actually very similar to Holly. Is actually like, if you're thinking like, I want to, the next step, is getting into schools, going beyond Friday. Don't go to, like Holly said, to have youth passes, friends around you. Go to people who are like almost killing it in that area to get wisdom, to get thoughts, to get even feedback. I think one of the biggest things that me and Rachel did, like I love this little group of 4 because we actually spent, because we did a youth camp earlier this year. But one of the things we actually got, both Jake and Holly, but Jake is especially, he just came to our youth on a Friday night. And he also, with being involved with our with youth camp together, the ins and outs, he saw our leaders, he saw us, how we did things and stuff. And I think me and Rachel would both agree, like we had to put a lot of our own like pride aside and say, hey, Jake, where would you see we're at? Where would you see? And we just got like an immense amount of great constructive feedback from him, because we saw him where he was at in their youth ministry, and we knew this is where we want to be going. So give me insight. And so that's like, if you want to get into schools, you want to move beyond that, find someone in your area, or someone, get around them and say like, or bring them in and say like, help me, give me some wisdom, give me some feedback. What am I not doing? What am I not saying? What am I not involved? And that's been like the game changer for us. It was just like, it took as simple as just bringing in someone I saw that I valued highly, that I respected much, and just like come in and just like, and yes, it took a lot of like, it takes a lot to just swallow my own tongue and just be like, I think there was so many conversations, he'd be like, why do you do this? And I'm like, yeah, because of this, shut up. And so it would be, but then I'm like, and it made me think, well, why do I do that? Why do I actually, I'm like, well, if there's no good reason to do it, then why am I'm putting it, scrapping it. And that's been massive for us, not just for Friday nights, but like throughout the weeks. And he was brutal enough to be like, spotting which leaders were gold and which leaders were, I'm not going to, we love Pastor Jake and Holly. They're different to us at CFCs. I can't make a love heart. Rachel, do you want to wrap us up? Any last bit of advice?
Yeah. I was going to say very similar to you and Holly about people, and like going to God with your disappointments and with your pride. I think those are the two things. Like when you're disappointed with how things are going, you can either give up or you can get really prideful and try and pretend like things aren't going terribly. And that just blocks you off and isolates you from other people. And so I think don't do that. There are people around you, even if you feel super isolated. I know like we've got the privilege of having people kind of geographically close to us, but even if you don't have that, like I get that some people don't have that. We're on Zoom right now, like take the opportunities that you do have, and don't let pride or disappointment be a blocker. And a lot of the time it's going to have to be going to God with that first and letting him just like mess you up, and then just trusting people to speak into your youth ministry, speak into your life in constructive ways and in encouraging ways. Yeah. But
Awesome.
You've got this.
Come on. Well, thank you so much, Pastor Jake and Holly. All of the best blessings with your church part. Just blessings upon. May his favor be upon it in 1,000 generations.
Amen.
Cheers,
Thank you.
Thank you. And for those watching this, hope that's been a blessing. Hope you've been encouraged, and we will get that link, schoolsrevolution.com. It's just schoolsrevolution.com, isn't it? Yeah, schoolsrevolution. Yeah, it's been a while since I popped on there, but I know the one. But yeah, and I think Phil, like, I mean, I think I speak for all of us. Feel free to contact any of us if you've got like any specific questions about how we've done certain things. Like for these guys, that they're legendary youth pastors. They've been doing it for 5 years and killed it. And so ask them, ask us about 147, whatever it may be. But also get around. There's good people probably where you are as well. So
Probably.
awesome. Probably, not hopefully. So God bless you, and we will see you later.
Peace out.